This is a demo video where we will learn how to make a clay vessel similar to the ones that people make in Arabic-speaking countries. Each student will receive a bag of clay. This will be the clay that you use to make your vessel, whether it be a pitcher or a cup or a bowl. And you need to write your name on the white part of the Ziploc bag with a permanent marker. When you're finished, you want to make sure that you seal the bag up here so that your clay project doesn't dry out too fast. If your clay is really wet, you can squeeze it a little bit while it's still in the bag, just being careful not to poke a hole in it, and that'll help it absorb some of that water in there so that it's nice and pliable and not too hard to work with. Remove the clay from your bag, and your first step is to make it into a ball. And you want to make it into a nice tight ball that's nice and even, kind of about the size of a baseball. This is called a bat. It's a wooden circle, a disc that you can use to help assist you in creating your ball and working on your project. Now I'm going to try to have it so that my ball is nice and compact and even on all sides before I start making a little pot. Your next step is going to be to push your hole into your ball. Many students have made a pinch pot before, and this is the first step in creating a pinch pot. You want to go about 2/3 of the way down. So if you look, my thumb went in about that far, but not so far that you poke through the other side or make it too thin. Your next step is going to be to start pinching your pot, pinching the sides of the ball, and rotating as you pinch. Don't do this too fast, nice and slow, and you can use your finger on the inside to smooth out the wall in there as you pinch. While you rotate and pinch, you can think about pulling your pot upwards like this to make more of a pitcher or a cup. Some kids, while they pinch, are going to open their pot out like this, which will create more of a bowl. You'll probably naturally create one of those shapes as you pinch, and your goal is to make the walls of your pot be about as thick as your pinky finger. One trick that I like to do while I work is take my finger and I rub it along the insides of my pot to help smooth it out while I'm pinching. Okay. Another trick is if your mouth of your pot is uneven, you take the bat and you tap it down on the bat like this, gently. If you tap too hard, it's going to smash it. But if you tap it just lightly, it'll flatten out the mouth of your pot so that it's nice and even. Then you can look and see which parts are thicker and which are thinner, and go in and adjust so that you have a nice even thickness. Okay, I'm going to keep pinching and see if I can make mine go up a little bit more like a cup. I notice that my clay has a little break right here where it's a little bit weaker and thinner. One trick is to take one of these plastic tools and you rub the clay across to cover up that crack, and it'll also strengthen the side of your pot while you're pinching. Another thing that happens is sometimes your clay starts to get dry and it gets what we call elephant skin. This is still fairly wet. But when you have elephant skin, you can dip your finger in the slip. I'll show you that. If you've taken art with me before, chances are you know what this stuff is. It's called slip. It's really wet, gooey clay. It's just clay plus water. And you use it to attach pieces of clay, and you also use it to fix it when it starts to get dry. So on this edge here, it looks like it's starting to get dry. So I just dip my finger in the slip, and I'm just going to rub it out like this. Now that it's nice and smooth, I can keep working it, and it shouldn't crack anymore. Right now my clay vessel looks a little bit more like a crazy ant hill or something, and not a pot or a cup. So here's a trick to making a base. You flip it over, and you hold it, and you gently start to tap out the bottom. You can rotate it a little bit, and this gesture here will start to create a flat base for your pot or your bowl or your cup to stand on. As I work my clay, I see that it's kind of becoming a bowl with steep sides, and I'm okay with that. What I'm doing now is just making sure that the sides are smooth, that the interior is smooth, and I'm doing this by rubbing my finger around, making sure there are no cracks, making sure there are no holes, because if you want to use this for liquid, you want to make sure that it can hold water. And this is basically your goal for day 1. If this doesn't work for you and your clay is starting to get too dry, you can start over with a new ball of clay, scrap it, and start again. Don't be too frustrated if it doesn't work your first time. Some kids may find that their pots get stuck to the bat while they're working. One trick is to move your pot a lot while you're working so it doesn't get stuck. Another trick is to slowly try to twist your pot off while you're working. And a third trick would be to put a tool or a wire. You can take a wire or even a string and pull it underneath your pot like this and pull it out the other side, and then your pot should be freed up from the bottom if it's stuck. If you have time at the end of class and you want to make a little handle for your pottery, you can grab a piece of extra clay and make it like a flat snake and then flatten it out so that it's about 5 inches long and about the thickness of a pencil. If you tap the sides, you can get them straighter, and then you're going to think about where on your pot you're going to put it. So now the fun part is deciding where your handle is going to go and making sure that it would fit to have your fingers go through it. I'm going to have my handle off to the side here, and I'm going to have to attach my handle right here on the clay and then down here on the clay. If you've been in art class before, you know that to attach, you have to slip and score. So what that means is you take off your handle, and where it's going to attach, you score first, which means you scratch pretty deep down into the clay. Same thing on the place where you're going to attach it, score, and then step 2 is you take the slip, which is like your clay glue, and you put it on both sides of the 2 pieces you're putting together. And the last step is to squeeze it together, and the scoring will interlock the pieces of clay. Okay, so now it's attached. I'm going to do it down here. Same thing, slip and score. If you don't slip and score, the handle will dry faster than your cup. Okay, so I scored that side too. And then it'll pop off and it won't be any use. Okay, so now my handle is attached to my cup, and you want to make sure that it's a little bit bigger because your cup and your handle will shrink when it goes into the kiln and it's fired. Okay, so if you can fit 2 fingers in but it's tight, it probably means that only 1 finger will fit later, but that will still be fine if you want to use it like a cup. When day 1 is over, you're going to put your cup or your bowl or your pot into your baggie for next class. Miss Alyssa's going to check them and make sure that they are finished. So for now, carefully set it in your bag with your name and period on it, and then I want you to seal the bag so that it doesn't dry out too fast, and give it to Miss Rita.